Greetings fellow ukuleleans, Jeff Weinberger coming at you here with a new ukulele tutorial. Today I'd like to talk about up the neck chords, but not necessarily bar chords, not necessarily difficult to play chords, but up the neck chords that are based on open chords. And that thing that I just did, that was improvised, that was made up on the spot. I had just barely thought about it before I turned on the camera, but I knew I wanted to be in the key of G Dorian. And I'll talk a little bit about that later, in case you're scratching your head and saying, gee, Dorian, what? I don't even know what that guy's talking about. Well, we'll figure all that out. But let's look at what I actually played. So I'm using these chords that are open chord shapes moved up the neck. I used only 2 shapes, a grand total of 2 shapes to play everything I just played. I had a G minor shape, good old G minor chord, not too hard to play. It's 0, 2, 3, 1. G minor, no problem. And then you take that and move it up 2 frets. It becomes an A minor 7. It's the same shape, same strings, everything, just moved up 2 frets. Same fingers. You just go like that. So that's kind of cool how all of a sudden it becomes a slightly richer and more complex chord just by moving it up 2 frets. That's because of the way the fretted notes interact with the open string. We still have an open G. This is basically an A minor triad. This is an A minor chord with just A, C, and E in it. Or more specifically, E, A, and C in that order. It's an inversion, second inversion. You don't have to know what that means. We'll talk about that in the future, about inversions. But just know that it is just a simple A minor chord. But when you throw that open G under it, all of a sudden it becomes this richer 4-note chord called A minor 7. So you can get a complex, rich sound with very little effort. You don't have to twist your fingers around into these weird gymnastic shapes. You just move your familiar G minor chord up 2 frets. No big deal. All right, this chord, that's a beautiful chord too. It's kind of like a B flat add 6. If you're not sure what that means, that's okay. It's basically a B flat major triad, like that, with a G under it, the 6th. Reminds me of Bohemian Rhapsody. Is this the real life? Probably isn't that chord, but it just reminds me of the first chord to that tune. So that's a familiar shape to you. I'm sure you know that shape. It's just like a G chord. Our easy beginner G chord. No problem. That's the simplest thing in the world. But you take that and slide it up to the 5th fret and voila, it becomes a B flat add 6 or B flat major 6 if you prefer. So our first 3 chords were still with that open G. And that's called a pedal tone, by the way. When you keep a single note going throughout a series of moving chords, the chords move, but that one note stays the same. That's called a pedal tone. That's a really common device used in music. It's a pretty cool sound. So I'll just keep hitting that G, that open G pedal tone while I change chords, and you'll see what I mean. So that is the pedal tone, the open G. Pete Townsend of The Who did that a lot in some of their songs. He liked that sound on the guitar of using a pedal tone. And it's a nice device. It's a really cool thing to do. All right, let's go further. The next thing I did was I took that shape, that G shape at the 5th fret that I was calling B flat 6 or B flat major 6, and you slide it up 2 more frets. Some of you might already know that that's a C chord. That's just a simple C chord. It's like a G shape moved up to the 7th fret. It's a C chord. If you already know your basic easy beginner C chord, is just a slightly fancier way of doing it, but it is essentially a C chord. So far we have G minor, A minor 7, B flat major 6, C. And then the last chord I did was that G minor shape again, but this time at the 8th fret, which gives us basically a D minor chord. But with the G is the sus4 of that key. Or because it already has a 3rd in it, we're going to call that a D minor add 4. You might say, what the heck does that mean? D minor add 4. I'm not going to get into the whole nitty-gritty of the music theory today and why chords have the funny names that they sometimes have, but I do have a book that I'll recommend to you. Maybe I'll leave a link down below if I can remember. And it is called Harmony and Theory for the Practicing Musician by Keith Wyatt. And there's another guy that wrote it, Schroeder, but it's a Musicians Institute textbook. And way back in college when I was going to school, we had that as one of our music theory textbooks. It is great. It's an excellent book. Highly recommend it, and I'll link to it so you can look at it on Amazon or whatever bookseller is your favorite, your local bookstore, preferably. They could use the business these days. But anyway, long story short, it explains why chords are called what they are. What are the rules behind a major chord, a seventh chord, a sus4 chord, an add9 chord. If that stuff is confusing to you, this book will totally clear that stuff up. It has a chapter on that, as well as lots of other great music theory topics. Highly recommend the book, Harmony and Theory. So yeah, I'll definitely link to that down below. I want to share that book with everybody. All right, and so that series of chords we can tell from our ear that they all sound nice together. They sound like they kind of belong together, and that G note really ties them together. Kind of a rock sound, you know, almost like a 70s sort of rock sound, I guess you could call that. But one of the things that you really need to know is what key are we in? Even though we know those chords go together, we haven't really talked yet about the key, and I consider this to be G Dorian. It's in the key of G Dorian. All G Dorian is F. It's the key of F, an F major scale. Good old friendly key of F. Lots of uke players play songs in F. You know, songs that have like F and C7. Good old country song with 3 chords in it could be in the key of F, so that's not complicated. But when you take those chords and put them in a different order, starting on the G minor chord, that gives you a key called G Dorian. And G Dorian is a little more sophisticated. It's using all those same chords that we had in the key of F, but in a very different order. And so that shifts our ear into a new tonality. And it's roughly a G minor sound, but it's not just a straight G minor sound. It's something that's special, and it's called G Dorian. But that's a variety of minor. In that book I mentioned, Harmony and Theory, is a couple of chapters on modes, and that's what G Dorian is. It's a mode of the major scale. So if you want to get further into that, I highly recommend that book. There's also lots of great YouTube videos and stuff on music theory, but I want to keep this short, so I'm not going to get into a long-winded lecture on music theory. I'm just going to teach you some really nice up-the-neck chords that don't require barring and don't require stretching. They're easy. Anybody can play these. You just have to be aware of them. You have to know they exist. G minor, A minor 7, B flat add 6, C, D minor add 4, C, B flat add 6, A minor 7, G minor. You can finger pick them. Can strum them. Do anything you want with them, but they're just cool, and I think this is kind of a uncommon topic. I don't see a lot of people out there in YouTube land and in the ukulele world talking about these unusual kind of chords, but every once in a while I like to turn you on to my own discoveries, things that I find out that I don't see a whole lot of other people talking about. It's just kind of nice sometimes to do something different. So if you're bored with the same old, and you're looking for something new to do, this is ripe material for you. There's a lot you can do with these. All right, fellow ukuleleans, hope you enjoyed this really different ukulele tutorial, and I will make some chord diagrams available. You can link, I will link to them down below, and you can click on those links to get to my Patreon so that you can see all these chords and all their loveliness. All right, be sure to subscribe, be sure to click like, be sure to click that notify bell, and visit me over on Patreon, where you can get all the tabs, all the chord diagrams, all the explanations, sometimes even recordings that you can hear to help you learn this stuff better. All right, fellow ukuleleans, you take care. Bye-bye.